thank you so much for being on Paradise Perspectives. You have taught me so much, and I am hoping that our conversation today is going to teach the listener some things as well. So, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much, Rissel. It's been wonderful collaborating with you on our other initiatives, where you've shown all your creativity, your expressiveness. I've truly felt a connection with you. And I'm very excited to be here, part of the important work that you're doing in the Caribbean and beyond. So thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for those words. It really means a whole lot coming from you. Thank you. So, the first thing that I actually want to dive into immediately, because I know that your time is precious, you know how, especially Caribbean women, we grow into these people that now have this scarcity mindset in which we are constantly thinking and reminded also by others sometimes that we have to stay small. And for some reason, as a Caribbean woman, you feel like you cannot get there, or at least not that easily. In my eyes, you have been one of those people that have shown me that it is absolutely possible. So I want to know, first and foremost, what is the mindset that you need to have in order to be where you are today?
Well, thanks you so much for that. You touched on a very important concept, and the concept about abundance and scarcity. And I must say that one of the things that plague us most, especially in the Caribbean, being, on small islands, some people even say we are on little rocks, um, is that we have self-limiting beliefs, that guides, what we do, what we don't do, how we dream, how we think, and how we fetter ourselves. And I think one of the more important things we can do as women and as entrepreneurs and as people from the Caribbean is to almost think like a child. When you talk to a 5 year old, like everything is possible. Why can't we go to Russia tomorrow, mom? Things like that. So I think if we almost approach life, all the possibilities and, all our dreams and passions with that sort of childlike, eagerness, I think that will help to take us a very long way. In terms of abundance and scarcity, growing up in the Caribbean, sometimes we learn more to be frugal, take care of this is limited, that is limited, this is limited. So sometimes it's ingrained, almost unconscious, okay, instead of making more money, okay, save the little you have, that is all good and well, but we also have to embrace this thought of, there's abundance out there, and if we can, shore up our energies, our positive energy, and put positive energy into the
Hmm.
universe, positive will come back as well. But very importantly, it starts with the mind. And
Exactly.
sometimes we blame, society, or we blame this or that or external factors. But sometimes our biggest critic is ourselves.
Hmm.
So I would say, be gracious to yourself, yes, we do have self-doubts. We all go through it. It's part of the human condition. But, push past that, and allow yourself to dream and dream big, so you've touched on such an important concept.
Right, exactly. But I love how you said, just remind yourself that that you almost like go back to when you were a child and have those like unlimited possibilities in your
Yes.
head. But I think a lot of times, especially for what you just said, you mentioned that we are constantly looking at external factors and blaming external factors for us being in a situation where we don't want to be, but
Right.
we forget that we are powerful beings and to look inwards. And also, let's not forget that the outside conditions, those are absolutely impossible for you to control. So what is the
Right.
point of actually
Right.
trying to control something that you can't? It leads to so much frustration, unnecessary frustration, right?
Yeah, and if you think of it, right, like if you have a friend that comes to you with a dream, you find everything positive and good to say to encourage them as to how it
Yeah.
can happen. But
Mhm.
but we need to be our own self-coach sometimes, because
Yes.
sometimes we're really rough on ourselves. Like, we all the bad stuff, I can't do this, I can't do that. So we need to be our own cheerleaders as well,
Mhm.
just as we are for friends and loved ones.
Exactly, exactly. Now, what are some of the tools that you use or some of the habits that you have actually incorporated into your daily life to kind of like remind you of this mindset also, to cultivate this mindset and to keep looking forward, to keep looking inward, to find your strength to continue to do the big things that you're doing?
Right. So I would credit the pandemic, although it was really an awful global phenomenon. I would credit the pandemic for giving me that quiet space to reflect and introspect. Because before that, I was juggling, family, business, community, you're juggling everything except yourself. But during the pandemic, I did find that time to reflect because, many activities were shut down. Even our little island was very protected in a bubble.
Yeah.
Our island of Anguilla was protected, to shelter us from COVID. But we spent a lot of time walking the beaches with family, with friends, and it really provided the perfect setting for reflection. So I would say that during the pandemic, I realized that I had dropped a lot of balls on myself. Just being busy working in business and not on business and not on myself. So at that time, I did some reflection. I listened to many, many podcasts, and there were so many empowering and positive podcasts
Mhm.
happening at the time. Everybody were Zoom folks.
Yes.
We got all tech, and
We got
you know,
very, very good at that.
yeah, we found ways to reach out. So I tapped into a lot of positive motivation, and a lot of positive expertise that was being shared with the world. And not only in areas of personal development and business, but even things that, I knew nothing about, creative art. And there were so many topics, that you could tune into, and free master classes and so on. So I really I would say, embedded myself in a lot of material that was positive. It was uplifting. It was, uplifting to the human spirit.
Mhm.
But as I say, not just on one facet, but your entire holistic being, your health and wellness. We actually started a group called the Fit Moms, right? Because we used to walk all the beaches, and, we had time suddenly, all of a sudden. And then we had to change that to female inspired team after we realized we were not that physically fit. But that whole period, that whole period was a period, I think, for me and a lot of my friends and relatives, as a period for reflection, a period for reset and holistic growth. And I picked up a lot of tools that I used apart from YouTube and the material that's out there.
Mhm.
I joined a group called Mind Valley, which is one of
Mm,
my
we spoke
favorite.
about that. Yeah.
It's one of my favorite learning go-tos because you can find any topic and they
Mhm.
personalize it to you. And you hear from people all around the world, So I do that. And then reading used to be one of my favorite hobbies, but then I got very involved with family and business. So my kids would joke that my hobby is the willingness to read. I would just buy all these books and pile them right next to my bed so that I could read. But I didn't have so much time to read anymore. So what I did, I signed up for another app called Blinkist. And what it
Mm.
does, it gives you within a 15-minute sort of synopsis, it gives you all the golden nuggets, very well narrated, of a particular book. So let's say you had 20 books on your bucket list to read and you didn't have the time to read them all, you can, tune in and select them on Blinkist and actually listen to the audio version of
Mhm.
it. So these are some of the tools I would use. You learn about, daily habits, like
Mhm.
Robin Sharma and, waking up at 5 a.m. and getting your day started after a great night's sleep. So many of these things, are tools to help set us up.
Mhm.
you know I'm still trying to work on my breathing,
Yes.
the power of the breath work. I
Oof,
haven't
breath
mastered
work
that
is
one
so,
yet.
so important. Yes,
Yes,
absolutely.
but I understand, that brings a lot of grounding,
Mhm.
to start our day. So I learned so much, during that time period, especially because
Mhm.
it was quiet time and reflective time. And these things I try to incorporate into my daily life, being more balanced, paying more attention to my health and wellness, mental health and wellness, which
Mhm.
became a bigger thing, during that time, and just trying to, I guess we're all trying to live a happy life. So
Yeah.
they say every day you must try something new and do something that makes you happy. outside of all your regular obligations and your must do's.
Mhm.
So I do try and add that color to my life, and to those around me as much as I can.
No, that's beautifully said. Now, before, what was Janine like before the pandemic? Before you started incorporating all of these tools and habits, what were you like? What was it that you have? Were there some of those habits that were not good for you that you stopped doing ever since when you dove a little bit deeper into, cultivating this mindset now of, going for what you want, but also staying more positive and more grounded and all of that? What was some of those bad habits that you had to let go of?
Right. So I think, when you're on a treadmill and you're just going, 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 and you're doing, doing, doing,
Mhm.
right now I take out a lot more time for reflection, and say, okay, yes, I'm working hard on this, but is this goal really meaningful to me, in
Mhm.
a holistic way, or meaningful to people I love? So I would say I take more time out for reflection. I don't think to be productive, you only have to be doing. You also have to be thinking, reflecting, collaborating with others, talking with others, sharing, So I do a lot more of that. I definitely prioritize the relationships in my life, loved ones and, mentees,
Mhm.
work colleagues, everybody, I prioritize relationship as very, very important for time. And I
Right.
also realize that sometimes that can't be rushed, you know
Yeah.
because my mindset before, I still am pretty much a type A person, but it was, let's get these things done. Let's work with our to-do list. What did we get
Mhm.
done today? And then sometimes at the end of your day, you look at your to-do list and you haven't ticked off much. And I'll feel like, oh boy, today wasn't that good a day, because I guess I was measuring myself on productivity only in
Yeah.
that more limited sense. But now I think I have a broader understanding of what being productive is,
Mhm.
and adding value to the world, really, which sometimes you can't just tick off a to-do list. So I think I just have a broader mindset, maybe more flexible and understanding of different personality types, meeting people where they're at, you know
Yeah.
and of course paying more attention to my physical well-being. Shout out right now to
That
my coach,
has to be
Lisa
part of it
Ray.
too.
Yeah, we have a coach, Lisa Ray, who really brings out the best in us. And sometimes we ask her if she's our friend enemy, because she really pushes hard. But at the end of the day, these are the people you have to surround yourself with if you're going to level up your game.
Mhm.
um, Another thing I can think of is that I'm pretty much of a morning person. So
Yeah.
my best brain is after a good night's sleep in the morning.
Yes.
So I would never think of exercising in the morning before. I would be
Really?
like, no, I have to exercise when I've, gotten the most out of my brain for
Hmm.
the day. But what you then realize is that your health and wellness is the most fundamental thing. So even if you're investing your best brain in the morning in exercise, it's really a great way to start your day. So I do take out that time, to do some exercise, even if I'm complaining while I'm doing it. But before I would never waste time doing exercise when my brain is fresh.
Wow,
I would take
that is actually, if of all the nuggets you have shared today, I think personally that is the one that hit the hardest because I
it
was
resonates.
thinking the same thing. Let's not
Yes,
waste brain power. Let me just work on
right.
everything that my brain needs to be
Yes,
active for, and I leave the
yes,
working out for later in the evening. But you're
right.
absolutely right.
Yes. So I still have to remind myself of it, because sometimes if you jump on that email in the morning, boy,
Hmm.
you get hooked and you can't, you want to just get that done and that done, and
Yes.
this one is waiting on that. But if you just take that time out for yourself in the
Mhm.
morning, ground yourself, invest in your body, invest in your mind,
Yeah.
invest in your social relationships, because all that is part of it. It really grounds you, and
Hmm.
sets you up for a great day.
Right. And it reminds me that what you just said reminds me of a podcast that I listened to all the way in the beginning of when I found my awakening and I started to work more on myself, is that the first thing we do, a lot of us do, is we grab our phone as soon as we wake up, and that is the
Yes.
worst thing that you can do. It's like
Yes.
inviting millions, thousands of people into your bedroom. That's what we're actually
Absolutely.
doing. It is too much
Absolutely.
on your mind,
Yes.
and that's also leads a lot of times onto procrastination and things like that. That you don't want to, those bad habits that you don't really want to be going down. You don't want to be going down that road. Now,
I totally agree because in
yeah.
cases like that, everybody else's priorities now
Hmm.
come in the way. So you
Hmm.
might have a beautiful day set out. Okay, tomorrow I want to, achieve this and that because these align with your goals and your purpose.
Hmm.
But then you wake up and all these emails are flooding in
Oof.
with
Yeah.
other people's priorities. I mean,
Hmm.
some of them are your priorities, but some of them are not your priorities. It's somebody else's priority, and then you get taken into it, you get sucked into it. Okay, let me just answer this, let me just answer that. And our to me, our brain space and our bandwidth is
Hmm.
limited, each day.
Yes.
Like you don't have unlimited bandwidth.
No.
So if it's taken up with all these other things that don't score high on your priority list, you at the end of the day you feel rather flat.
Hmm.
You've outed a lot of fires, but you haven't done anything meaningful to progress your goals.
Right. One thing that I absolutely will never sacrifice are slow mornings. For me, that is one of the most important things for me to do every single day. Slow
Yeah.
mornings. And when I say slow mornings, I don't mean lay in bed until 10 o'clock. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about slow mornings, slow getting up. For me, that's meditation. That's a little bit of breath work. That's listening to a podcast. That's putting all of these positive information into my head and then preparing for the day. So I wonder, do you also, you've already mentioned that of course you work out in the mornings,
Mhm.
but is there anything else that you set up in the morning just to make sure that you have a good day? Besides,
Yes,
of course,
definitely.
also, sleeping well, because that if without sleep, forget it. Yeah.
That's so critical. But yes, I listen to a lot of beautiful podcasts,
Hmm.
that set about to nourish your mind, body, and soul. You
Hmm.
know, so waking up at 5 o'clock after 7 hours sleep is like my dream come true, because you have that quiet time
Yeah.
when nobody is WhatsApping you and everything is quiet,
Hmm.
and you can really reflect on what you want to achieve. Not only for that day, but in general. And just
Yes.
tune in and check in on yourself. How am I feeling? Why did I feel triggered by this? How can I improve this? What are the areas I want to grow? And a lot of your creativity will come to you at that time
Hmm. Hmm.
because there's no noise, literally and figuratively.
Yes. Yes,
So
that's correct. That's
so
beautiful.
I totally believe that time, and as you said, slow time when you
Hmm.
need it, is the new luxury. Because
Yes.
if you think of it, that's all we have
Hmm.
is time in life.
And time is the ultimate of all things that is worth
It
achieving. Time,
is.
time,
Yeah,
time,
we're
time.
all trying to achieve happiness, and we
Hmm.
all have the same amount of time to work with.
Yeah.
Some people, end up squandering their time,
Hmm.
or achieving the success by society's rules, but it doesn't fulfill them, and that's
Hmm.
still squandering time.
Yeah.
So I think, in terms of the mindset of success, you have to define, what does success mean to me?
Hmm.
Because it means different things to different people. And the society defines it in a particular way as well. But you got to dig deep and find out, you know, what will make me feel successful within myself,
Hmm.
and work towards that.
Right. So you have grown up. I think you were born and raised on the island of Montserrat.
I was
You
actually
have.
born in Canada. I was born in Canada. Um, my father, and my mom were in Canada because my father was
Mhm.
completing his master's degree. So I happened to be born in Canada, but I moved back to my dad's homeland and
Mhm.
my mom's adopted homeland because my mom is from England and my dad is from Montserrat. So we moved back there when I was about 1 year old.
Mhm.
So all my upbringing up till the age of 19 was in Montserrat.
Right.
So this is how I self-define. I'm a Montserratian to the bone. Yeah.
And you have made your way down to Anguilla, and this is, if I believe correctly, like what we just spoke about before we started recording. You mentioned that it was because of the volcano eruption that was there in Montserrat
Right.
all that time ago. But that was the reason why you moved to Anguilla. Now, can you? You were recently back in Montserrat, and I just want to say, out of my own personal curiosity, what was it like to be home?
It was absolutely beautiful to be home. I went to visit my parents. I was spoiled like I was still a child.
Yes.
Parents are always parents. So I woke up to beautiful meals and, had a lot of great quality time with my parents. We did a lot of visiting,
Mhm.
of relatives I have on the island, seeing friends, being in nature. I have to send you the video clip of my dad's garden, Emerald
Yes,
Garden.
please. I
Was
would love to see that.
beautiful garden. So Montserrat is very slow and quiet, and lush and warm and friendly.
Hmm.
So it's always great to go back and reconnect. And yes, you were mentioning our volcano. In 1995, we did have a volcano which completely disrupted our lives
Hmm.
because two-thirds of the island became rendered out of bounds and unsafe, overrun with ash and pyroclastic flows. And then one-third of the island, which was the least developed one-third of the island,
Hmm.
had to become the new safe zone. So
Right.
Montserratians have gone through quite an unusual life journey in having to give up most of their land and move to a
Hmm.
small section of the land with, I would say, probably at least two-thirds of the population leaving the country, if not more,
Hmm.
to seek life, to make life all over again. So
Hmm.
that was a very interesting, painful, yet high growth, I guess, experience in our life, where everything as you know it is disrupted.
Hmm.
The tree you used to play under, the house you grew up in, where you went to school. I mean, it's pretty much a surreal
Yeah.
mental experience that you
Yeah.
cannot go back in these areas and show your children.
Mm.
But what we learned throughout all these years since 1995 is that, you know what, you can hold on to people,
Yeah.
and we keep such a great, connection with our family and friends and, people we grew up with, no matter where they're scattered all over the globe. So it's always a very heartwarming experience to return to Montserrat.
Hmm.
It's very quiet. It's not the Montserrat we knew, 30 years ago. However, there's that charm, there's that beautiful charm. It's an eco-friendly place. It's, the way the Caribbean used to be, some people call
Yes,
it.
exactly. Yeah.
Very, very little crime,
Hmm.
practically crime free. People leave their doors open. It's just a beautiful landscape
Hmm.
and cultural, landscape as well. So it was really very, very special going home.
Right. And I think also with all of the things that you have mentioned, one of the big things, of course, the having to move, and also having gone through such a big natural disaster, which I now can actually understand a little bit better, having gone through Irma,
Yes.
in Lord of mercy, when was that? That is now 7 years
Irma
ago,
was
isn't it? Um,
2017.
exactly, 2017, which was also, also had a big impact on both of our islands, both St. Martin and Anguilla, a
Yes.
big impact on us. So and that is, I'm saying that because I want people out there, especially Caribbean women who are listening, I want you to remember how resilient you are as a Caribbean
Yes.
person. And in
Yes.
my books, there is nobody more resilient than a Caribbean person, just because of all of the things that we constantly go through. And
Yes.
still, we keep telling ourselves that we are too small to elevate,
Yes,
So,
I totally agree with you because we tend to think of ourselves as small even in the world, We're
yes.
we're on small islands, but when you look at our
Hmm.
history and what our
Yeah.
ancestors went through and how the various cultures have come in
Hmm.
and contributed all the good things about their culture, and how
Yes.
we're like a perfect blend of many, many cultures.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
that gives us a lot of strength,
Hmm.
resilience, and I'm in the tourism industry here in
Hmm.
Anguilla, and people feel it when they come. They
Yes.
absolutely feel it. It's an intangible quality of pride and connection that people feel when they're here,
Hmm.
and all this is born out of some of it is born out of the struggle.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly. Exactly.
but as you said, we're very resilient.
We're
We're
very
very
resilient, but at the same time, also, it's like don't think of us as small because if all of us, just imagine if all of us would combine our powers of all the
right.
islands together, how mighty we might be. But I think we
Ex-
are already mighty. Just in our smallness, we
yeah.
are mighty. So,
And what
yeah.
I like now in the era we're living in now
Hmm.
is that geographical boundaries, have been erased in a sense with
Yes.
technology.
Hmm.
Like you're in another island, I'm here, and we're collaborating like we're sitting next to each other, you
Yep.
know? So we don't have to be limited by the physical space. We can think big, we can go global, regional, whatever, we want to put out there into the universe, we certainly can, because now
Yes.
we have the tools to do it.
Now, one of the, you already said when you had to move from Montserrat to Anguilla, that was, of course, the lesson that you learned, which is to, keep on holding on to people rather than memories of things that you may have lost. Uh, Now, what is another lesson that you have learned in, especially having to start up again, start from, and I don't like, that is one thing that I learned is we don't start from scratch, we start from experience. So what was
Right.
one of the big lessons that you learned having to start over in quotation marks, having to start over in Anguilla?
Well, first of all, we were very grateful as Montserratians that the government allowed us to come here and work, without
Mm-hmm.
work permit and immigration restrictions. So it was easy in a sense that you were moving from one small community to another. However, you're starting from ground zero when you don't know many people.
Yes.
Probably you could count the number of people you know on your hand, right?
Yes.
So I think it just you just learn that you have to adapt, you have to be flexible, you have to grow, you have to understand the nuances of your new environment, your new neighborhood, and sort of learn to navigate that,
Mm-hmm.
and also you learn that you're a flexible human being,
Yes.
a place that feels like home. You can feel like home in different locations around the
Mm-hmm.
world.
Yeah.
So even though your home is mostly physically destroyed, it doesn't mean you can't, find home elsewhere, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's one of the lessons too, that, sometimes we have to relocate places, or whether we're relocating jobs, relationships, countries,
Mm-hmm.
you can always find that sense of home and belonging again,
Correct.
if you open your mind.
Right, right. Now, since we were talking about connections, let's talk about Janine Connects.
All right.
JanineConnects.com, which is one of the big things that I really wanted to talk to you about today because that is one thing, one of the big things that I admire about you. You are not only this really savvy businesswoman, you have created these amazing projects, Tranquility Beach in Anguilla and other luxury homes together with your husband. You have created all of these things that people can see and actually touch and say, wow, you did all this, you built all this. It's incredible. But I think one of your biggest talents is also how you can recognize something in someone and then connect that person with somebody else. And I think that is one of those mighty powers of yours. I call it almost like this matchmaking expertise that you have, right? And I think that's what you bring a little into Janine Connects. But to the listener, can you tell us a little bit about what Janine Connects exactly is?
All right. So before I get into that, I'll do a little bit of background.
Hmm.
So I've spent probably 25 years, supporting my husband, Ian Sugar George Edwards, who is a fantastic designer and, property developer. I've supported his projects, which he has his wonderful creations, more on the administrative and the marketing end. So I've been able to dabble in tourism, property, all the things that surround that, and it tied in as well to my hospitality and tourism background. So that was good, and we continue that process as well through the different properties you mentioned. However, there were also a set of, I would say, passion interests I had that I did that didn't quite fit into real estate or tourism, right? So I bundled them up into something called Janine Connects. And what it really was that I had a lot of experience in navigating different businesses, you know, in Anguilla, like, seeing businesses from the ground up, really contributing to how things work best here. And
Hmm.
what I found out is that many of our investors, developers, people who come here to make home and make business, they were not so au fait with how we do business in Anguilla,
Hmm.
right? They're great business people in their own space, but they would benefit from some guidance as to how we do things in Anguilla, in
Correct.
terms of networking, cultural nuances, how to fit into the
Hmm.
community and the
Mm-hmm.
community at the same time as doing business. So I started a consultancy practice around that, who would help entrepreneurs, developers, enterprises, business people who had many questions about, how do you do this? Who do I talk to for that? Would this fly well? Would this work well? Would this contribute well? That sort of thing. So that is the I would say the commercial arm of Janine Connects. The other side of it, I had passions in, I would say, mentoring entrepreneurs, mentoring young people, especially in the areas of business, how to do
Mm-hmm.
business well, and so I did a lot of work around that unofficially for many years through the Chamber of Commerce, the Anguilla Hotel and Tourism Association, and groups like this. So I sort of bundle it all together, to create Janine Connects. So all my passions that didn't quite fit into certain buckets of property development, and tourism, I bundled all in one area and called it Janine Connects.
Okay.
And I do things like a radio program on tourism, which I've done for many years.
Mm-hmm.
I've been part of different boards. For example, boards to do with education, the creative arts, many projects that, brought me a lot of joy and really built up the community. So I also have that community end arm, where I contribute my expertise to help build that side of it. So basically, it's really a bundle of a lot of different things, um, that encompasses advising, speaking, doing keynote
Mm-hmm.
addresses sometimes, mentoring, and just collaborating with others. So basically, that's why. And the word connects, talks about collaborating with people and,
Mm-hmm.
sharing.
Now, what are one of some of the things and things that we can actually look forward from Janine Connect? Do you have anything that's coming up that we should know about?
Right. Well, we just did an excellent workshop with Gender Affairs and She Trades and the CDB funded initiative. That was excellent with about 27, I think, female entrepreneurs.
Mhm.
That was great. So I want to do some more of that. I can't do it every day,
Yeah.
but I want to do some more of that. And I want to collaborate and reach regionally a bit more,
Mhm.
because we are living on small islands and we have a wealth of many Caribbean islands that we can
Yes.
link with, very interesting people to connect with. So I would like my work to carry me, regionally,
Mhm.
so that I can make new connections and, experience and learn different things. So that's one of the things on the books. Also, do I have any other goals? Of course, health and wellness is always top of mind
Always.
at this time, at
Family.
this age. Yes, yes, and just continue to be there for my family and explore my passions
Okay.
and help others
Thank you.
along the way. Yeah,
Yes,
very important.
exactly.
Adding value
Exactly.
to others. Yes.
So if anybody wants to get in touch with you, Janine, what is the best way to do that?
Well, you can reach me at janineconnects.com.
Mhm.
That's probably the best way by
Mhm.
email. I have a website as well called JanineEdwardsInfo.com, where I have more of my contact details there. So, and my website is JanineConnects.com.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
So,
Fantastic.
I'm easily reached through there.
Okay. Now, I'm going to ask you, and this is something that I think I'm going to start doing in every episode, especially when I have a guest on, right? I'm going to shoot some questions to you. It's like these rapid fire questions, and you get to answer them rapidly. Don't think about it,
Okay.
just go for it.
Okay.
Okay. Are you
Yes,
ready?
sir.
Okay,
All
good. Let me get comfortable here. Okay, let me go. All right. One book, podcast, or habit that changed the way that you think about business?
right. Mind Valley for sure.
Mm,
Mind Valley. That's my top.
okay. Okay. Favorite
Yes.
place on Anguilla to reset when you really need it?
I think I would say Rendezvous Bay because I tend to find myself walking that beach, although Meads Bay is also a favorite, but Rendezvous Bay, Meads Bay, yes.
A mantra that you live by?
I would say always add value to others, yes, always see how you can add value. And sometimes it's a small thing, like a
Mhm.
5 minute favor,
Yes.
or just a compliment, or just taking the time to make a special connection like open your network to somebody, or, so I would say add value to others.
Now, finish this sentence. Success as a Caribbean woman means.
Success as a Caribbean woman means holistic happiness, achievement on the goals that you have set that are meaningful for you, nurturing and nourishing family, community, the vulnerable, and having some fun while you're at it.
Amazing. Amazing. Thank you so much for the time that you have given us today. Thank you so much for giving all of these really important things that you have mentioned, these nuggets. I have definitely learned a lot from this conversation again. So, and I'm sure our listener has as well. Thank you for making the time, and thank you for just being you, Janine, and for being
Thank
in
you.
this world. I mean, like, you are such a, like I said, such a powerhouse, but such a source of inspiration as well.
Thank you so much, and I want you to really continue your very important work.
Thank
I
you.
know, I know you're juggling a lot. You're doing your wellness retreats, you're doing your podcasts, you're doing all the different facets of you. I
Hmm.
really appreciate you, and wish you well on your journey. And thank you for putting me in a hot seat, because
Yes,
normally I'm the interviewer.
exactly. How does that feel now that the roles have reversed for a little bit?
Thank you for not letting me escape. you know, yes, but yes, I enjoyed and I learned as well. And thank you so much for having me.